Before banks, before coins, bills, or numbers on a screen, before wealth was measured by accumulation, there was another system, one built on trust, balance, and community. This is the story of how Native American societies lived, traded, and thrived without money. Chapter 1. A different idea of wealth. For many Native American tribes, wealth was never measured by accumulation. It was measured by relationship. To hoard resources while others lacked was not a sign of success. It was a failure of responsibility. True wealth was shown through generosity, reliability, and the ability to care for others. A person's value grew as their willingness to give grew. Food, tools, knowledge, and labor were shared, especially in times of need. Those who had more were expected to support those who had less, not because of obligation, but because survival depended on balance. Excess disrupted harmony. Sharing restored it. A respected person was not the one with the most possessions, but the one others could depend on. Trust became a form of currency. Reputation mattered more than ownership. In this worldview, wealth was not about control. It was about contribution, and prosperity was found not in having more, but in ensuring no one had too little. Chapter 2. Trade without currency. Trade existed long before coins, paper, or banks. Native American tribes built extensive trade networks that connected forests to plains, deserts to coastlines. Food, tools, hides, pottery, salt, shells, and artwork moved across great distances, carrying culture along with them. Value was never fixed or universal. It shifted according to need, effort, season, and circumstance. A resource that was abundant in one region could be precious in another. Trade was not about profit, but about balance. There were no price tags, no interest, no debt enforced by force. Trust was the foundation of exchange. A fair trade was one where both sides felt respected, not exploited. Relationships mattered more than transactions. To break trust was to damage future trade, reputation, and survival. Honor ensured cooperation. Dishonesty carried lasting consequences. In this system, trust became currency, and community became the marketplace. Chapter 3. The role of gifting and reciprocity. Gifting stood at the heart of indigenous economies. To give was not to lose, it was to strengthen bonds. Every gift created a relationship. Every act of receiving carried responsibility. Gifts were exchanged not to gain advantage, but to build trust, gratitude, and mutual care. What was given today was understood to return tomorrow, not always in equal form, but in support when it was most needed. This system ensured that no one stood alone. During times of hardship, illness, or loss, generosity became a safety net woven by the entire community. Wealth moved through people rather than accumulating in the hands of a few. Reciprocity was not enforced by law, but by honor. Those who gave freely earned respect. Those who consistently refused to give weakened their standing within the community. In this way, gifting encouraged cooperation instead of competition. It reminded people that survival was shared, and prosperity was collective. Chapter 4. Community sharing systems. Many Native American tribes organized life around communal sharing systems designed to protect everyone. Food from hunts, harvests, and seasonal gathering was not treated as private property alone, but as a collective resource. Surpluses were stored and distributed according to need. Elders, children, the sick, and those unable to provide for themselves were never seen as burdens. They were responsibilities, and honoring them strengthened the entire community. This system created security without accumulation. Survival did not depend on individual strength, but on collective care. In times of scarcity, sharing prevented collapse. In times of abundance, it prevented excess. No one was left behind because survival was not a competition. It was a shared commitment. Through cooperation, communities ensured continuity, dignity, and balance, values more enduring than wealth itself. Chapter 5. Status, reputation, and honor. In many Native American societies, status was not built through accumulation. It was earned through character. Reputation mattered more than possessions. Those who were generous, skilled, and fair gained respect, not because they demanded it, but because their actions served others. Leadership emerged naturally from trust, not authority. Honor functioned as social wealth. A person known for honesty, courage, and reliability carried influence wherever they went. Their word held value. Their presence created stability. Selfish behavior weakened standing. Hoarding resources, exploiting others, or breaking trust did not bring power, it brought isolation. Community memory was long, and reputation followed a person throughout life. In this system, wealth could not be hidden or stolen. It was visible in behavior, and respect was the richest possession one could earn. Chapter 6. Balance with the natural world. Economic decisions were inseparable from the natural world. Taking more than necessary was not simply wasteful, it was imbalance. Resources were gathered with restraint and respect. Hunters, fishers, and gatherers understood that survival depended on maintaining harmony with the land. Every decision considered not only the present need, but the well-being of future generations. Overuse was seen as a spiritual failure. To exhaust the land was to break trust with it. Gratitude, ceremony, and careful stewardship guided how resources were taken and how often land was allowed to rest. Sustainability was not a theory or policy. It was lived knowledge, passed down through practice and example. In honoring nature, communities protected their future, ensuring that abundance could return season after season. Chapter 7. Disruption through colonization. Colonization imposed money-based systems that were foreign to indigenous ways of life. Land was reduced from a living relationship to a commodity. Resources were extracted for profit rather than shared for survival. Traditional trade networks and gifting systems were dismantled or criminalized. These changes fractured community bonds. Systems built on trust, reciprocity, and balance were replaced with systems driven by ownership, accumulation, and competition. Scarcity was introduced where balance had once existed, and dependence replaced self-sufficiency. Economic disruption was not accidental. It was a tool of control that weakened cultural structures and reshaped values. The loss was not only material, but social and spiritual. Yet the knowledge was not lost. It lived in memory, stories, and continued practice. Despite disruption, indigenous communities carried forward the principles of sharing, responsibility, and respect, waiting for the moment they could be reclaimed. Chapter 8. Enduring lessons for today. Today, many Native American communities are actively reclaiming traditional economic values rooted in care, balance, and responsibility. Through cooperatives, land stewardship programs, and community-centered initiatives, ancient principles are finding new expression in modern forms. These efforts prioritize collective well-being over individual accumulation. Decisions are guided by long-term impact rather than short-term gain. Land is treated as a relationship to be protected, not a resource to be exhausted. What once sustained entire civilizations continues to offer guidance in a world facing inequality, environmental strain, and social fragmentation. These systems do not reject modern life. They reshape it with wisdom drawn from the past. They remind us that economies are not just systems of exchange. They are reflections of values. And they can be built on care, balance, and shared responsibility, not profit alone. Closing reflection. Perhaps wealth was never meant to divide us. Perhaps it was meant to bind us together. Through generosity, responsibility, and care for one another. Welcome to Mode Hub Tales.